Organizing a conference like this takes talent and commitment, and we could never do it without our help and the inspiration of our presenting sponsor, which is RBF Consulting, which is a Michael Baker Corporation, and RBF has a vision for this watershed and sees OWOW helping the watershed in this vision. Ron+Craig, Senior Vice President, will now share that vision with us. Ron?
Thank you, Ron. Welcome, everybody. It's an honor and a pleasure to be the presenting sponsor for our 4th year at OWOW, and to now be representing RBF as a part of Michael Baker provides us greater depth of experience and overall water capabilities. We would like to thank Celeste, the Water Resources Foundation, and the attendees here today that invest quite a bit of your life around water. The first steps in success for implementing the vision are to appreciate how far we have come, learn from our conflicts, celebrate our victories, and move forward to make the vision a reality. In telling that story, we can see that SAWPA has a deep and eventful history and a uniquely progressive approach within our state, which serves as a model and a blueprint for watersheds across the country and throughout the world. We have a firm belief that as leaders, we must always look to continue the education process and take every opportunity to recognize what is changing around us and how we might adapt. With that in mind, as your presenting sponsor, we have a unique presentation for you today, which reaches out to other leaders for some thoughtful insight. We have incorporated some excerpts from interviews that Rita+Sudman from the Water+Education+Foundation performed recently. We will be given the opportunity of hearing some water wisdom from Lester+Snow, Jay+Zigler, Allan+Zaremberg, Chuck+Bonham, and John+Laird. It was long ago in this watershed that our iceberg began melting, and we saw the need for change and a different approach. Harvard Business School's leadership and change guru, John Cotter, illustrated the need for change in Our Iceberg is Melting. And in our interview with Lester+Snow, Director, Integrated Resource Management, California+Water Foundation, he speaks about the different way of doing business that SAWPA has embraced.
Well, my issue is the water resource paradigm has already shifted, and it's been shifting for decades, where the water pattern isn't the same as it was in the past. We have greater droughts, we have higher flood peaks, much greater level of uncertainty about our water supplies. And so the issue now is water agencies are not moving quickly enough to keep up with the changes that we're seeing. And we've got to move a lot more aggressively into integrated and comprehensive water management. It's a different way of doing business, and they would prefer that the old hydrology, the old weather patterns come back, but we're seeing all across the West that people are realizing that's not going to happen, so it means you have to adjust. And that adjustment means approaching water management in a very different fashion, and it means doing it in a collaborative way, managing resources on an integrated basis, as SAWPA has done for years. Well, I think that there's a long history, and some of it was conflict in the Santa Ana Basin, but what they've done is take advantage of the conflict in the past and start managing the resource basically from the headwaters to the ocean, which is the way that we have to manage it in the future. What they've also done is brought I'll call it a portfolio approach to water management, not just looking at one issue, one reservoir, or one project that fixes their problem, but pursuing aggressively conservation, wastewater recycling, stormwater capture, doing it all to provide greater reliability to the entire region.
There's a lot of good out there in the water world beyond our watershed. But as Jim Collins outlines in his #1 best-selling book with over 1 million copies sold, Good is the Enemy of Great. Jay+Zigler, Director of External Affairs and Policy for the Nature+Conservancy, California, acknowledges SAWPA in the striving for great in the watershed as a model for the rest of our great state.
The future of California depends on cooperation up and down watersheds. It's good for urban water users to actually have healthy forests. The San Bernardino forest is a really good example of that. So if we can fashion these kinds of win-win partnerships, where we look more creatively about forest role in water quality and the role of wetlands play in actually improving water quality, we can have better flood solutions, we can have more reliable water supplies, we have policies in place then that will promote groundwater recharge, and we will all have a more reliable water supply at the end of that. So SAWPA and the one watershed process is exactly the kind of example that we need to see replicated throughout California. What SAWPA has done is to provide a place where all the critical interests in the watershed can work together. What results from that are better policies in the watershed for forest restoration, for using forests to keep water clean, for using riparian areas and restored riparian areas to improve water quality, to enhance groundwater recharge, and ultimately to improve flood protection. Those are all goals that can work together if we're smart about it.
Getting to yes is what this is really all about and why we're all here. SAWPA has been strategizing and putting the best minds together for years to protect and enhance our watershed. We do need to discover more ways of saying yes. Allan+Zaremberg, President and Chief Executive Officer of the California Chamber of Commerce, relates water to the economy, business stability, and growth, calling water the blood that makes California work.
You know, California business needs certainty. California business needs to rely on what their government agencies are telling them that they need. They need certainty in the ability to look forward and to make sure that they can plan and they're going to get an adequate return on their investment as they move forward. So what California business needs, they need an educated workforce. They need the absence of overburdensome regulations. But they also need investment in their infrastructure, whether it's transportation or water. And water is crucial because it's really the blood that makes California work. It delivers the necessary nutrients to be able to have jobs, to create that economy. And without that kind of certainty, without knowing that that water supply is going to be there in the future, people are going to be hesitant to invest in businesses, in jobs, in California's future. I don't think there's any question that SAWPA has a strategy, and I think that's an important part, that parallels that of business. You need to be able to make the best use of your resources. You need to pull the best ideas together and strategically develop the solutions to California's problems. And one of those clearly is water in Southern California. And to be able to show the investors, the job creators, that you have a strategic plan that's going to make the best use of the money, pull the best resources together, and not just financially, but also from the terms of strategic development, the best minds together. You're going to have solutions that you can point to that are going to show the job creators, here's a place to invest, here's a place that is working together with business, and most importantly, we're not going to waste your money.
Why has SAWPA gathered you all here today to share information across our watershed and move closer to implementing the vision? To collaborate as we have over the last few years, to share the passion for water, to connect. Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi is about the power of relationships, networking, and being connected. Let's hear what Chuck+Bonham, Director, California Department of Fish and Game, has to say about relationships, our sense and importance of community in water, and SAWPA.
1889, John Wesley Powell went to the Montana Convention and he advocated that the state of Montana kind of design its county boundaries around watersheds. Now they didn't listen to him, But I think then it was a good idea, and I think today it's a good idea, this concept of watershed commonwealths. Thinking about our communities based on our shared hydrologic circumstances is smart thinking for me, because it creates the opportunity to explore options and solutions for solving some of the tough problems. I think watershed boundaries are the way in which we can kind of recraft this concept of community. And from community dialogue, I find, come the most durable water solutions. I think watershed boundaries are a really powerful concept in Southern California, because it allows planners to bring in the entire range of the community, from the source up in the mountains all the way out to the sea. And it's that concept of planning across that diversity, particularly in Southern California, I think that allows the flexibility to best manage our water to meet multiple beneficial uses. So I don't think that this concept of multi-species and recovery management comes at a greater cost. I actually think in the long run it's smarter. And if I had to leave 3 thoughts with folks, it would be these 3. First, I think relationships really matter when it comes to water. And I don't just mean relationships with people who think like you. I mean working across historically divided lines. When an agency can have a conversation with a water user or a farmer, when a conservationist can partner with a farmer, that's the kind of relationship stuff that really matters to solving water problems. Second, regulatory certainty and environmental gain, they're not mutually exclusive. You don't have to pick between fish or farms, people or the environment. That's basically guaranteeing losers. You can do both. California is a can-do state. The more fun conversation is fish and farms, people and the environment. The other thing I've learned in California is that doing nothing is no longer an option on these issues. That's just basically a punt of the problem to our children. Status quo is not going to cut it, so we're going to have to get creative. And that really is the last lesson I've learned. We're really only limited by our creativity.
Lee Cockerell, Executive of Operations for Walt Disney World for the last 14 years, shares 40 years of management experience and decision-making in his book, Creating Magic. The leadership he speaks of translates to any organization, and the results of such leadership, much like the approach at SAWPA, serves to achieve balanced decision-making and seemingly magical results. John+Laird, California Secretary for Resources, shares the magic of SAWPA's approach and the example of Southern California's magic, if you will, of serving 3 million more people with the same amount of water.
No, I've experienced a transition in California after the last 10 years, because there was a time when we were flush with money. There weren't a lot of interlocking jurisdictions or issues. It was just looked at as a silo of one district. And things have changed since then. They've not just changed because we have less money and people need to work together in regions to make money go further and to be able to have some regulatory certainty and to change things in a good way. But when you have those limited resources, what's happened in the last 10 years is there's been a requirement from the state level that everybody work together rather than give everybody a fraction of a grant. Give a major grant to a number of different jurisdictions for a problem that crosses those jurisdictions. I love to tell the story that I was on the assembly floor and I praised Southern California for water use because in the Los Angeles basin in the last 25 years they've grown by roughly 3 million people on the same amount of water. So they've learned how to be efficient and use the efficiency to cover their growth. I think SAWPA is doing an excellent job because they're making a success on the principles that are behind integrated regional watershed planning, bringing everybody together, making people realize that there are people right around them that have interests that might not be in their own district but can make money go further, and working together can solve a problem in a much better way. Who would have thought that recreation integrates well with watershed planning in a way that you can take recreation money, watershed money, it's not just water supply money, and you put it all together and you help fish, you help water supply, you help recreation. And before, those were things that were done by different districts or in silos, but when they're done together, it's a common goal, money gets stretched further, and you meet a regional need in a way that people weren't looking at it before. That's the success of integrated regional watershed planning, and that's why it's important.
As leaders and decision makers, we can each do our part by helping make sure our projects and stewardship embrace more for less, sustainable objectives, and greater water resource certainty for the future. As we look to implement the vision, we can each learn from others. Thank you very much, and welcome to OWOW 2.0.